and welcome to the second session with the Paul Howard Fluting Jig. Today I'm going to attempt to put some external fluting on this piece of elm, which I've rough turned into the shape of a random pot, and the pessimist in me has prevented me from doing any hollowing out at this stage. But before we go into the mechanics of how we're going to do this, I wanted to show you that following the first episode, I've come up with a bed for the router, which is based upon this piece of MDF that used to be a bathroom panel that sits on top of the lathe. This base will be absolutely necessary for any faceplate work, of course, but when being used up for a spindle will provide a lot more stability. Having checked the circumference of the piece, I've decided on the use of a 19mm core box cutter to produce the fluting effect for this item. And to check my calculations, I've actually drawn on here a couple of sections of the fluting to make sure it fits. So I've just slipped the cutter in and going to realign it with the center line of the piece. So challenge here is that due to the fact that the router cutter is very fat at 19mm, I cannot see an obvious way of making a guide bush that will encompass a cutter this large. So we're going to have to engineer a solution to this challenge, but in the meantime I'm tightening the router cutter and making sure it's well clear of the bush. Okay, I'm sure there is a way to fabricate a guide bush that would accommodate a very large cutter like this, but nothing springs to my mind immediately. So I hit upon the idea of using some battens screwed to the base to restrict the movement of the router. Now, because I'm making a linear cut in this elm pot, I don't have to worry about curves or depth of cut. In fact, because of the curvature of the pot, I should get a shallower start and a slightly shallower finish. Okay, I've got my dust extraction system running, the lathe is switched off, the bed is secure. The two battens which I've screwed to the base plate are secure, so here we go. Well, that's successful, and I've got a good cut there. The fluting is graduated at the beginning, and you can see a slight difference in depth at the end. So now it's just a question of moving the index plate around to the next notch and then replicating this another 13 times. Okay, we can clearly see here that we have a serious deviation in the cut simply because the chuck was loose on the spindle. and it allowed it to wander off. Okay, the piece is somewhat ruined, but I'm going to tighten up the chuck, move it round. We will have lost alignment, of course, and then complete some more of the passes. Okay then, so this piece was spoilt by an insecure chuck which moved during the routing and it went off course. However, once I started again, I have to say that the cut is very consistent and very clean, and I might have even hollowed it out and finished it. However, not to be defeated, I'm going to turn off this fluting, redesign the piece and have another go with a smaller cutter. Right, so I've turned off the previous fluting and sanded back to 240. I've calculated that I need to go down to a 12.7mm cutter, and also calculated that approximately 20 grooves should give me the desired effect. So I'm using the outer ring of the index plate, which has 60 iterations, so I'm using every fourth hole to give me 20 iterations. And as you can see, I've marked these holes with a red whiteboard Sharpie to make sure I use the right ones, and I can wipe these markings off when I've finished. Okay, so I've changed out the cutter for a 12.7mm one. I could make a guide bush to fit this, I think, but actually I want to use the same system as I used before, so I've got a shallow lead in and a slightly shallow lead out. Okay, so I'm installing two battens again to restrict movement of the router, and I've just adjusted the base, moved it back towards the headstock to put the vertical batten in the same position. The horizontal batten has been set in a position which will give me a shallow lead in and a shallower lead out and a full depth cut along the rest of the line. Okay, we're ready for the second attempt then, including checking that the chuck is locked.
So after 20 passes, a more than satisfactory result, no tear out or any other issues with the cutting. It would take very little abrasive work to bring this up to scratch and to provide a very good finish. I'm very happy with this. Okay, thanks for joining me here today, and I hope you got something out of it as well. The next project, which I hope to do tomorrow, is going to be some simple faceplate work on a platter.